temporary protected status, affecting almost 2 million taxpayers who are now at risk of deportation and family separation. Good morning, Darlene.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yes.
It is good to be back home with you amazing ladies. I am really excited to be with you. It's been too long and to be reconnected and to celebrate women with you and women around the world who are in the forefront, who are fighting, who continue to push against all odds. So thank you so much for having me.
Go ahead, girlie.
Darlene, would you like to speak about what you've been up to?
Yes, no, thank you so much. I thought you
Okay.
just asked me to introduce
No,
myself.
no, no, that
Please.
was your introduction. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you so much. As was mentioned, my name is Gerlin Joseph. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Haitian Bridge Alliance. We are at the forefront of human rights, migration, and racial justice in the United States and around the world. And we continue to push and fight against systematic racism, issues that are impacting domestic violence, sexual violence, and all the other things that we continue to fight to make sure that we are all free. It's been a long journey. It's been extremely difficult. And I remember if it was in 2019, Libby, when I was honored by the women of OC and really pushing forward in this fight. And I cannot believe we are in 2026 and we are still fighting for the very basic dignity of people, the very basic right of women, very basic humanity of people seeking safety, people seeking asylum, immigrants and refugees in the United States. And oftentimes I asked a simple question. And I do realize that we can sum up the United States population if we want to at three very distinct groups of people who have come together to create a country. And you can see where you fit yourself. And you can ask yourself, are you a descendant of enslaved Black people in the United States who were brought here against their will? Or are you a Native American whose land we stand on? Is that your background? If the answer is no to each of those, then our forefathers came here seeking safety, seeking protection, seeking for a different way of life. So therefore, our immigrant status today can be connected to over hundreds of years. And how we continue to understand that, how we continue to center that, how we continue to welcome all people with dignity and compassion in love, I believe can lead us into a better world. Locally, we continue to address those issues. We continue to center the humanities of people in everything that we do. That is why we currently have several lawsuits against the government that is trying to remove legal status from over 2 million people. And within the Haitian community alone, we are looking at 500,000 people who have called the United States their homes for the past 15 to 20 years. These are women, these are mothers, these are families who unfortunately are at risk of family separation and deportation. I remember under the first Trump administration when we had a major march to several spaces, and we ended up at the Music Detention Center where we stand against family separation. And I believe this was one of the most critical time for us here in Orange County to see people of all background coming together against the system that was literally killing children here and around the country. So I think it is very we are at a very moment again where we need to step up for justice. We need to set up for equality. We need to set up for equity. We need to make sure that we are all on this fight together to push back, to create and leave the world just a little bit better than we found it. Thank you so much for having me, and I welcome you to join us in the fight to continue to push to get temporary protected status stay in place for Haitians, for Syrians, for Lebanese, and others around the country. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Gerline. And if you have any information, a website, or for donations, if you could put that information in the chat for our listeners so they'll be able to assist you. And we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next guest is Sudi Faroknia. She is an activist who has resided in the U.S. for over 40 years. Her field of work is accounting and risk management. She serves as the president of the Iranian American Democrats of California. She's a member of the Orange County Central Committee and executive board member of California Democratic Party. Welcome, Sudi.
Thank you so much for having me, and happy Nowruz to everyone. Spring belongs to all of us, no matter if you observe it as your new year or not. This year, we do not celebrate with joy, but we do it with solidarity. We light our candles in memory of those who have been lost, and those who are imprisoned or displaced because of this illegal, immoral war. And truly, freedom is missing from our Nowruz, and democracy is missing from our Nowruz, whether we live in United States or in Iran. This is a fight it's a double-edged fight for us as Iranian Americans. We fight so hard to learn from the experience we've had in Iran, and to make sure that the same story does not repeat in the United States, when there are so many powers working to demolish democracy and definitely remove the lines between the religion and politics. And that's what we've been warning our greater community for years, and that's what we are focused in the Iranian American Democrats of California, is to educate, engage, and empower our community to be part of this democracy, that it's like a muscle, that if you don't use it, you don't exercise it, it will have atrophy and it will die on you. What else would you like me to talk about today? About the plight of the Iranian women, or what we've been up to?
Sure.
So I think that one of the things that would be good to talk about is, one is that the role of the Iranian women and their struggle into in this path of freedom and democracy. Obviously, their role became very much an international phenomenon 3 years ago during the Women Life Freedom movement, where we were so happy to see such a strong solidarity from the global community. However, again, we are going through this trial in Iran, and the fight for freedom and human rights and democracy, and against the brutal regime in Iran. It's been ongoing. On March 8, 1979, less than 3 weeks after the Islamic Republic had came to power, it was the first march, and for 5 days, women in Iran stood on the street because they were told that starting that month, like the new year coming, that they would have to wear scarf over their head and cover their hair in order to go to work. That was the first way of they were trying to push women outside of the workforce. Well, we see that happening in the United States as well. All the many ways that they make it so much harder for women to be able to work because, somehow they have it in their mind that America was great before the 19th Amendment, before women could have the right to vote, before women were part of the workforce. And that's exactly what the Islamic regime did. So you can see the parity between all dictatorship, no matter where they are in around the world. And so that fight has continued, and we retract, we reorganize, and we go out back at it. And so the spree of the murderous regime has been going on for all of the 47 years. But right now we're at this point where, while their brutality and their funding for the proxy wars have been, going on. I see you, Libby. they, they, there has been the war. What has been happening in 2026 is a remanufacturing of trauma for the people of Iran. The 12-day war, the Treasury has admitted that they actually reduced the flow of dollar in order for the Iranian currency to fail. So we are not happy with this war. We are happy with some of the byproduct of this war, with like the Khamenei gone. So if you'd like to learn more about where IEDC stands on things and hear from the Iranian community, please follow our Instagram page. It's called Iranian Dems, or go on our website, iademca.org. And Faye Hazar is also here. We are here to answer any questions in the future. Thank you so much for this invite.
Thank you,
Please put
Sudi.
that in the chat,
Sure.
where to follow you.
Okay. Thank you, Sudi. Now I would like to introduce Natalie Mosier, who is a former Huntington Beach City Council member, community leader, and current executive director of Robin's Nest, where she leads programs supporting at-risk and housing insecure youth across our Orange County. She is a mother of 2 beautiful and talented teenagers, breast cancer survivor, and longtime advocate for human dignity, public service, and inclusive communities. She has dedicated years to building partnerships and systems of care that expand opportunity and strengthen belonging. Good morning, Natalie. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me back. It feels especially meaningful to talk about Women's History Month at a moment when so many people are feeling both the weight of history and the urgency of the present moment. And I think for many women, that weight is not only political, it is deeply personal, and it is a daily thing. It's caring for an aging parent or an ill family member, checking in on family, picking up prescriptions, helping someone get where they need to go, managing work responsibilities, carrying invisible emotional labor, and trying to stay present in relationships and community, all while holding a quiet awareness of everything that's happening around us, locally, nationally, and beyond, and wondering what kind of world we are shaping in the process. I think many women live in that tension every day, holding ordinary responsibilities while also carrying extraordinary concern. And this has always been true. When we celebrate Women's History Month, we often think about the milestones, the right to vote, access to education and healthcare, civil rights protections, and the generations of women who pushed forward even when the culture around them told them to wait, to stay quiet, or to accept less. But the truth is that most of those women were also living ordinary lives while they did extraordinary things. They were caring for others, managing households, working jobs, navigating loss, carrying responsibilities that history rarely records, and still finding ways to act when history asks something of them. Even the right to vote was not handed over easily, as we all know. It took decades of organizing, persistence, courage, and women who were often dismissed in their own time before history finally caught up with them. Because history also teaches us something else, progress is never permanent. Rights are not secured once and for all. Every generation is asked in its own way whether it is willing to protect what others fought to build. And I know that many of us feel that very personally right now. Here in Orange County and certainly in Huntington Beach, we have seen how quickly civic life can become strained, divisive, and even hostile. We've watched public institutions become battlegrounds. We've seen libraries politicized, public trust tested, and basic dignity debated in many ways many of us would never have imagined we would witness so close to home. And yet, some of those hardest moments, the people kept showing up, they were the women. And I continue to notice how often that labor takes shape in ordinary places. Right now, women organizing other women around Home Depot parking lots, gathering around kitchen tables, hosting book clubs, meeting for coffee, making posters, painting signs, planning marches, texting one another late at night, figuring out who will speak, who will call, who will knock on doors, and who will show up. There is a kind of civic labor in that, often unseen, often unpaid, mostly unpaid, often folded into already full lives, but it is real work. It is how communities learn to organize, to resist, and to protect what matters. And I have deep appreciation for the women who keep doing that work again and again. Some were women who had already been doing this work for years, organizing, mentoring, advocating, and serving quietly and consistently long before anyone was paying attention. Others were women who had never spoken publicly before, never stood at a podium, never imagined themselves politically engaged, or for that matter, running for office. And what struck me over and over again was that whether someone had been leading for years or had just found her voice, there was often a shared moments when silence, as the shirt says, no longer felt possible, was no longer an option. And that has always been true in our history. Not every woman who changes history begins by intending to. Often she simply reaches a moment when conscience becomes stronger than comfort. I'm no longer serving in elected office, and that transition has had its own complexity. Learning how to contribute differently, how to use my voice differently, how to accept that seasons change while still asking what responsibility means and what that remains. And now in my work as executive director at Robin's Nest, I see every day how much leadership matters because policy, values, and the tone of a community all land in real human lives. I work with young people across Orange County who are trying to stay in school while navigating housing instability, family disruption, food insecurity, and uncertainty about their future. Young people notice who we're becoming. They notice whether adults choose cruelty or compassion. They notice whether truth matters. They notice whether people stay engaged when democracy becomes uncomfortable. So maybe one of the most important reminders right now is this. Women's history is not only something we honor, it's something that we continue writing, often in ordinary days, in tired moments, in difficult transitions, and in the decision to keep showing up anyway. And if this moment is asking anything of us, it is not withdrawal. It is clarity, it is courage, and a refusal to surrender the values that make democracy worth protecting. And perhaps that is the quiet lesson women have always carried forward, that even in uncertain times, ordinary daily acts of courage, care, and persistence still shape our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. And for those that are listening, can you put in the chart in chat about the collection this week for the children that will not be receiving meals during the spring break? That would I know that you have had that on Facebook and that, but just a reminder.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, our next guest is Diamond Tran. She is a first-generation Vietnamese attorney, proud wife, and mom of two great kids she raised here in Huntington Beach. She graduated from Marina High School, attended UC Berkeley and UC Law in San Francisco. Her husband, Robert Metzman, is also an attorney and is currently a candidate for OC Superior Court Judge, seat 13. Good morning, Diamond.
Good morning, Joanne. Thank you all so much for having me. It's wonderful to participate in this with you all, and listening to all the other women before me. I feel so humble to be sharing my story because really in my work, I speak for other people, and I really never speak for myself. So this is new for me. Currently, I work for the Public Law Center as a staff attorney in the family law unit. And we serve some of the most vulnerable people in Orange County with issues such as domestic violence, adoptions from foster care, and legal guardianships. PLC is a legal aid nonprofit that helps low income people in immigration, housing, consumer tax, health issues, family law, the unit that I'm in. We also serve veterans and other nonprofit organizations. I also have a small private practice where I help people with conservatorships, and those are needed when for example, there's a moderately developmentally disabled child turning 18, and families want to continue making decisions for that child. So they need to ask the judge for permission to be able to do that. Or if you've got an elderly person who's no longer able to make their own decisions, and they haven't designated a power of attorney. So that rewinding 50 some years now, I was born on a US Vietnamese Joint Air Force base because my dad was a helicopter pilot for South Vietnam during the war. About 5 months later, when it seemed clear that the US and South Vietnam would lose, days before the fall of Saigon on April 30th, 1975, my parents made the difficult decision to part ways. He wanted us to leave the country and get to safety, but he needed to stay and fulfill his duties as a helicopter pilot. He said goodbye to my mother, my brother, and I. My brother was a toddler then. So my mother left, holding me, an infant, in one arm and holding on to my brother in her other hand, trying not to lose him in all the chaos. We ended up on a US aircraft carrier for days, along with thousands of other people who were being evacuated. My mom said, thank God she was able to breastfeed me at the time, and that other mothers asked her to breastfeed their babies and toddlers. And at the time, she didn't know whether she would run out of breast milk. So she declined. And, now she obviously understands that you don't run out of breast milk, but she didn't know that back then. So that's a story that she's told a lot that really just as a mother who, breastfed my own children for years, it really hits me. So eventually we arrived in Guam and stayed there for a time. I think, it's fuzzy, the memory, so it may have been, 10 days, a few weeks. She doesn't remember clearly. So she had no idea whether my dad was still alive. After weeks on Guam, we were told it was time to leave for the US, but my dad still had not arrived on Guam, and she didn't know if she'd ever see him again. So while other people boarded for planes for the US, she waited. She waited to the very last day. And miraculously, they did find each other, and we all flew out with each other. Wow, 30 seconds, that was fast. So fast forward, my dad and my mom built an incredible life here, small business, and I'm just so proud of all the things that they were able to overcome as immigrants who came here with nothing at all, war refugees, really. So I was a latchkey kid and I watched a lot of TV and I watched a show called Fight Back. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was with David Horowitz and he would go around to businesses and basically follow up on consumer complaints. And he was really a hero to me. And I think that's kind of where my desire to become an attorney was formed. And so my husband is also an attorney, and he is running for judicial. He's a judicial candidate and will be on your June ballot. And you know, if you live in Huntington Beach, you know that that judges are important, smart and ones that exercise good judgment are important. So. Thank you all. I'm over my time now, but it was really wonderful to share my story with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diamond. That was a wonderful story, and thank you very much for sharing. Okay, now joining us is Rhonda Bolton. Is Rhonda here?
Yes.
Good morning, Rhonda.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining. Okay.
Pleasure.
Okay, for Rhonda Bolton, for her entire career, she has advocated for common sense accountability and equity in public policy. On the Huntington Beach City Council, she fought the corruption and cronyism of the council majority and their allies that bred scams like the massive taxpayer ripoff, also known as the Pacific Air Show. After 2024's disappointing election results in Huntington Beach and nationally, Rhonda anticipated that the courts would see an uptick in battles to protect the rights of women and marginalized communities. So that's where you'll find her now, in private legal practice, focused on vindicating workplace and civil rights for the people that need it most. Welcome, Rhonda.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Joanne. So, happy Women's History Month. It's a bittersweet happiness considering all of the things that are going on in the world today. I was looking at the theme for today's talk, assaults on women's rights continue. And, amidst all of the discussion of the violence that is done to women and our rights in terms of, assaults on our body, assaults on our minds, assaults on our families, and assaults on our communities, I decided to focus today on what I would call economic violence. And I want to focus us on that because I think that what is happening to us, women and men, Americans today, is a form of violence. And I want to thank my Iranian American and Haitian American sisters for reminding us that authoritarian and patriarchal regimes look very similar no matter where you are in the globe. And so I want to ask, did you know this? So if you'll remember back in 2025, a little effort called DOGE that laid off thousands and thousands of members of the federal workforce. Did anybody recognize that those agencies that were targeted by DOGE were the ones that were majority female? So the workforce was substantially female. So agencies like the Department of Education, Health and Human Services, Social Security Administration, you name it, those agencies had workforces that were well in excess of 50% female, even though overall the federal workforce is only 46% female. So what the end result there was that women bore the brunt of that economic violence and lost their jobs. Did you know that of those people who lost their jobs, 33% of them were Black women, even though Black women only made up 12% of the federal workforce? So fast forward to today, and I'm reading an article, I think in the Washington Post yesterday, talking about AI and who that's going to impact and what those people are going to do if they lose their jobs to AI, and saw just a statistic that blew me away, which is this. Of the people that are predicted to have the most difficult time finding another job or another career after they lose their jobs to AI, what percentage of that group of people do you think is female, is expected to be female?
A large-
The percentage is 86%. It's like, how can this be? But if you think about it, it's all orchestrated. We have our administration that rubber stamped what Doge is doing. We have AI billionaires who are donors to our leader that want to roll out AI without any guardrails at all and without any consideration to what kind of impact that's going to have on the workforce. And, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but this sure does look to me like a concerted effort to make sure that women, stay where they want us to stay. Just like, we heard the description of what's happening in Iran and what had happened in Iran in the past. And, if you leave this discussion today a little bit mad or madder, yeah, that I want you to be mad because we have work to do. And it's hard to believe how much danger we are in right now, as a demographic, as a people, as a country. We are at war. Every time we think things couldn't possibly be worse, you wake up the next morning and it's like, you've got to be freaking kidding me.
Right.
I'm tired. I know you're tired. We have to keep going. We cannot give up. So yes, there's a march next Saturday. Let's get out and march. If marching and protesting is not your thing, do whatever makes you happy and bring one new person with you, please, please. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for continuing to inspire me. I am inspired by you every time we get together. I just refuse to give up. There's too much at stake. I love you all. Have a great Saturday, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Rhonda, and you have a good Saturday also. Okay, our next guest speaker is Stephanie Wade. Stephanie is a former Marine Infantry officer, environmental activist, and educator, which I've learned a lot from. She has worked as a policy and field staff for a Congress member and an Orange County supervisor. She is a founding member and current chair of the Lavender Democrats PAC, a Christopher Street Project board member, and a county commissioner and past chair of the Orange County Veterans Advisory Council. Good morning, Steph.
Well, thank you, Joanne. You're one of my sheroes, as a lot of the women on this call are, especially folks like Libby and Natalie. It was great to see you as well. And Rhonda, I'm a super fan. Sudi, I'm really been following through DPOC the work that you're trying to do in the Iranian American community. This is a great group. Lorelei is here. And they represent people who have an outsized impact on trying to make things better. So I'm glad to be here, but I'm also glad to be here, as a transgender woman, to be included in this space. And I'm not always welcome in women's spaces. And I'm glad to see in a lot of ways that's changing, because I think we're a lot stronger and united together because, as just about every speaker is saying, we've been fighting a patriarchal order that, affects us deeply. And transgender people are deeply, deeply affected by a lot of this. So I'm going to just shoot 3 asks in the chat, and I hope you'll do at least one of them. And the one that I really hope you'll do the most is I hope you could make a small donation to a PAC that I've recently joined the board of called the Christopher Street Project. Christopher Street was formed in 2025, and in 2025 we raised $500,000. This year we're looking to raise $1 million, and I will not be marching with you at the No Kings rally on the 28th because I'll be in Washington, D.C. doing No Kings and Transgender Day of Visibility. Transgender Day of Visibility is the 31st of this month. We're celebrating and being as visible as possible on the 28th, on No Kings Day, and I will be in D.C. for that programming. Christopher Street's sole mission is to elect a Transgender Supportive Congress. And they really were instrumental in electing people like Adelita Grijalva in New Mexico. And she's become one of our staunchest allies and one of the strongest overall progressives in the House. So those are my three asks, but I'm going to just use what little time I have today to talk to you about something that's local that I think you'll want to know about. Oh, and I'll just say the three asks were, in addition to the Christopher Street Project, the Lavender Democrats love it when folks show up, even if you don't want to join. Several people here are members of the Lavender Democrats, including Libby, who never misses a meeting. But we have a Zoom meeting this Wednesday, and it's going to do a lot of prep for No King's Day. If you're free Wednesday night, there's a registration link. I hope you'll join us. The other one is there are two resolutions that our club and that I helped write, resolutions coming up in the DPOC Central Committee. So several of us here on the call are members. I hope you'll support both resolutions. One resolution is a boycott of Home Depots for their cozy, boycotting them here in Orange County for their cozy relationship to ICE. And the other is a petition that I started called the Duty to Disobey, which advocates or lobbies our governor as the head of the or as head of the California National Guard, as its commander in chief, to institute mandatory supplemental training in the Uniform Code of Military Justice's mandates that service members disobey all orders they know or ought to know to be unlawful. And so that's something we can do here to act locally to have a national impact. So I hope you'll sign that petition. It's there, and if you're on the Central Committee, I hope you'll vote for it. And as I said, my other ask is any, though, even a $5 donation to the Christopher Street Project. We're using that money for one thing to bring busloads of people from East Coast cities into Washington for our Transgender Day of Visibility. And the last thing I'm going to just say with my last minute is I've just discovered something, and I will be reaching out to a lot of you to help on this. Please keep an eye on it. I just discovered that the Orange County Fair eliminated an exhibit that they previously had on LGBTQ military service in the Second World War. It was part of their permanent collection, and it went in line with other parts of the exhibit that are still there about women's role during the Second World War, African Americans, Latino Americans, Japanese American internment. All that's still there, but they chose this time to eliminate all reference to LGBTQ people. So I hope you'll stand in solidarity with us when we have some actions on that coming up shortly. Thanks very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Stephanie, and have a safe trip in Washington, and we'll look for you on the news. Okay, we'd now like to welcome Jacqueline Perez. Is Jacqueline here?
Everybody?
Yes,
Yep.
hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, we'd like to share some time with you this morning. Jackie, at only 19 years of age, is a Golden West Community College student. Pardon me?
Cosign.
Golden West Community College Student Body President and Vice Chair of the Undocumented Student Caucus, when most of the student government is made up of students in their 30s. Jackie's mother is undocumented and her father passed. She has a unique perspective being a natural-born citizen with an undocumented parent. She is currently advocating for legislation to remove the requirement of providing a parent's tax returns in order to receive financial aid. She is not eligible because she can't provide those documents. Jackie lives with her mother and her 11-year-old sister. It's so nice to have you join us today. Thank you, and nice meeting you.
Of course, pleasures likewise. Thank you so much. Well, good morning, everybody, and once again, thank you so much for having me here. My name is Jacqueline Perez, and as previously, I am a community college student, a student leader, and someone who is deeply committed to creating change. However, most importantly, I am a daughter, and I think that's really where my story begins. I grew up in a mixed status household with a mother who was undocumented, and at a very young age, I understood that the world didn't operate the same way for my family as it did for others. There were things that we didn't talk out loud, fears we carried quietly, things like what happens if something goes wrong? Who do we call? What do we do? And while other students were solely focused on school, I in turn was learning how to navigate uncertainty at the time. So for me, education was never just about getting good grades. It was about building stability, it was about creating opportunities, and honestly, it was about survival. There are different kinds of pressure that comes with that. You're not just trying to succeed for yourself, you're trying to succeed for your family, your parents who sacrifice everything, and for a future that honestly feels like it's just out of reach. And that pressure can feel heavy, but it can also be powerful. And because it teaches you resilience in a way that nothing else can, it teaches you how to show up even when things are uncertain, how to lead even when you feel like you don't belong in the room, and how to keep going even when the odds are not in your favor. So, and that is something that I see reflected in so many women like myself, especially women from immigrant families, from underrepresented communities, from women who are constantly navigating systems that weren't built for them in mind and still finding ways to rise anyways. So ultimately, that is what Women's History Month means to me. It's not something about just honoring the past. It's about recognizing the strength that exists right now in this moment in rooms like these. It's about understanding that behind every woman's success, there's often a story of sacrifice, resilience, or perseverance that people don't always see. And it's about creating spaces where those stories are not only acknowledged, but valued. And because we share those stories, we remind others that they're not alone. And we make it easier for the next generation of women that are stepping into spaces that one felt out of reach. So if there's one thing I want to leave with you all today, it's this. You don't have to come for perfect circumstances to create a powerful future. Your challenges truly do not disqualify you, they prepare you. And your story, no matter how complex, is something to be proud of. So ultimately, thank you so much for inviting me here and listening to me, for creating these spaces that voices like mine. And thank you for continuing to uplift women, not just today, but every day. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie, and we really appreciate you joining us, and we'd like to continue hearing from you and the work that you're doing at school. So thank you.
Of course, my pleasure.
Okay, our next speaker this morning is Irina Rook.
Hello, hello.
Good morning, Irina. Irina is
Good morning.
a Ukrainian, and since Putin began his war against innocent people in Ukraine, she has been raising money to purchase emergency medical supplies, mobile power stations, and other needed equipment to help Ukrainian defenders stay alive as they fight for the freedom of their country. She and her team in direct contact with the frontline defenders who receive 100% of the donations that Irina and her team collect. Good morning and welcome, Irina. And don't forget, if you could put your information for donations afterwards in the chat, we would appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I'm new in this group, and I certainly appreciate the honor of being invited to speak in front of you. Thank you very much. I have thoroughly enjoyed the stories of all the women who have spoken before me, and I will stay throughout the call to hear more. Thank you so much for your strength and continuing to persevere and fight. We seem to have so much that we need to fight for. A slight correction on my bio. I am actually not Ukrainian. I happen to be Russian. And I would like to share my little story with you. when the full-scale invasion, full-scale war on Ukraine started. It's my original country of birth that started it, and it affected me in a huge way. And I decided that I can no longer sit and wait for things to be happening with so many people being hurt, displaced. And I decided to do something about it. So I started a team of people, eventually to be called Viva Ukraine. That's who we are today. We have many different people from different backgrounds, a lot of immigrants, a lot of Russian people, Ukrainian people, Americans of different walks of life. We certainly appreciate everybody who joins us and shares our vision in this world that seems to be crashing every day in front of our eyes. And with the issue of Ukrainian war, sometimes it's felt like it's being shoved under the carpet, but it's a huge, huge break, a crack in our world that is not going away. And I feel like everything else is whatever is happening is just the minor cracks that are starting maybe from that source. In any case, we are a small group who care about the country we live in, the United States, and we have been out there protesting. Some people have seen us in many different locations around Los Angeles area. We do fundraisers for being able to collect funds that help those people who are at the front lines, including women. I have two very dear friends of mine who are now my dear friends, who I didn't know just a few years back, who are at the front lines in the most unhumane conditions, fighting for their country because that's the only way. For people like that, and for those who are suffering greatly, we are continuing to fight and raise money. We go to protest to say our words against today's government and the tyranny in this country, and to remind people that the tyranny of other countries who attack sovereign nations nearby or otherwise is still a great point to consider. And we feel like it's all the components that make the same whole, our globe that we live on. We make buttons. That's one thing we do, and make t-shirts, including spirit gear. We sell them at the protest. We appreciate greatly all the people who welcome us to the protests that they lead in their communities. And I know some of them are present here today. Thank you. And all of the donations, all of the sales go to the front lines for people to survive. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you also. And I'm sorry for the error at the beginning. I appreciate
No
we
problem.
here. And if you could put your information in the chat so that there are people here that would be willing to make donations to your cause. And we support Ukraine also. So thank you, and
Thank you so much. Will do.
Okay, now we'd like to welcome Becky Gomez, former Tustin City Council member. Is Becky?
Yep, I'm doing that part. You do yours.
Okay. Thank you, Libby. Anyway, Becky was a former Tustin City Council member and Orange County Board of Education trustee. She's an athlete, longtime youth coach of women's sports, and a women's sports fan. Since her high school years, Becky has worked to achieve equity for girls, to have the opportunity to compete in sports. Sports help young women develop their skills of leadership, resilience, and perseverance in adulthood and their careers. So thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. I'm honored to be amongst some very talented and just wonderful women. I'm going to take a little different take on Women's History Month. I'm going to share some sports things, but I think you'll see how it's going to apply to what we're talking about. I've coached and played youth and women's sports for well over 60 years, so do the math. For many of us, and especially girls who grew up in the 1960s and before, there were few organized sports for girls. I was lucky. I grew up near a local park that had a wonderful female rec leader and coach. A few years ago, I was at a conference when I heard a woman talking about her high school basketball experience and how girls didn't play the full court. 6 players, 2 defenders on one side, 2 offensive players on the other, and 2 rovers that could run the full court. My freshman year was the first year 5 girls played the full court. And again, don't do the math. As I boarded the plane coming home, a women's college basketball team got on the plane. I was thrilled to see how far, or so I thought, women's basketball had come. Shortly after, one of the women players at the NCAA tournament posted a picture of the women's workout room, which barely had any equipment. The internet blew up with the disparity when the men's workout room pictures were shown. Quite a difference. It's only been in the past 2 years that the college women could use the, quote, Final Four to promote their tournament. In 1972, Congress passed the landmark legislation, Title IX of the Education Amendments. It reads, no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Although many of us know it in reference to equality in women's sports, it also prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in any educational institutions and programs receiving federal funding. The primary author was Hawaiian Representative Patsy Takemoto Mink. In her younger years, she wrote to more than a dozen medical schools for admission, but they refused her application because they did not admit women to their schools. She practiced law and served as a state representative before being elected to the Congress. In 2002, the Title IX legislation was officially renamed the Patsy Takemoto Mink Equal Opportunity in Education Act. Billie Jean King was the best women's tennis player in the 1970s. Because of the disparity in women versus men's tennis prize money, in one case, $15,000 for men and $1,500 for women. Led by Billie Jean King, 9 women tennis players signed pro contracts for $1 to play for the World Tennis Association. The current ladies pro tournament threatened to force them out of their tournaments. Virginia Slims stepped up to fund the new tournament. And within a few years, the exposure and prize money grew significantly. In 1973, Bobby Riggs, an older male pro, wanted to get into the action and challenge Margaret Court. Margaret Court got trounced. Billie Jean decided to play him for $100,000. Riggs was the ultimate showman and tried many things to distract from the game. Billie Jean soundly beat Riggs, which happened to be on my 17th birthday, and used that $100,000 prize money to help promote the Women's Tennis Association. This match was a big deal that it even bubbled up to our high school. 2 male athletes challenged my tennis partner and me. The prize money wasn't $100,000, but that dinner we won, we sure ate a lot. I also had to bet our high school newspaper editor to feature the girls' basketball team when we won the league title. We did, and he did. Equal treatment and pay has affected our women's national teams, especially in soccer and hockey. Our women's national teams now receive much better pay, training, and benefits that are equal to the men. This week, the WNBA agreed to a new CBA that significantly improves players' salaries and a salary cap increase of over 450%. Part of this is due to revenue growth, a recognition of the popularity of women's sports. The 2024 women's title game had 18.9 million viewers, the most viewed college basketball game in history. In the late 1970s, a single woman could not get credit, but when they got married, the credit reverted to their husband's name. Billie Jean was the first woman to get an American Express card in her own name. Right. Until 1973, the Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year had always been a male, and that year, Billie Jean...
I'm going to run the dishwasher.
Billie Jean and John Wooden were both named Sportsman of the Year. In 1990, Life magazine named Billie Jean as one of the most important Americans of the 20th.
Please mute.
Oh.
the most important Americans of the 20th century. Billie Jean retired with 39 Grand Slam titles, and she was the first female athlete to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Girls in sport can help them develop leadership, resilience, and perseverance as they achieve their goals. Remember that we have stood on the shoulders of some very impressive women. Please support our young women to play and compete, whether it's a niece, friend, daughter. Support them with your presence, or purchase an item at the snack bar if there's no entry fee. Show them that you care. There will be lessons that last a lifetime. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Becky. I still remember when they were fighting for Title IX, and my daughter's an athlete, and so I followed you, and you're an exceptional coach and support of women's sports, and keep it up, because I asked a question yesterday to my husband, how can we always have March Madness for all these guys in college, and we need to have more advertisement and TV time for our women. So thank you. Fight on.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'd like to introduce Talia.
No,
Oh, excuse me.
Dr. Viviana.
Okay, excuse me. Now I'd like to welcome our next guest, Dr. Vivian Aviles. She lives here in Huntington Beach and has been practicing as a pediatrician for the past 31 years. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I feel a little out of my league listening to some of these other women. I'm humbled, very impressed. Thank you very much. Libby asked me to participate in this conference after hearing about a situation that I faced when I moved to California in 2016 and applied for my California medical license. At which time I was told that the California medical license had to be in my quote legal name, which is my married name on my driver's license, Viviana Aviles. When I told them there is no Dr. Aviles, all my medical degree, my DEA license, my state license, all has my maiden name. They gave me pushback. Again, I had to sort of fill out extra paperwork and it took extra time. But I said to them, I cannot be the only female who kept her maiden name professionally and uses her maiden name socially. So in the end, the good news is, yeah, no, I was able to get my California license using my maiden name. So that is the good news. She also asked me perhaps to discuss other issues that female physicians might face. And Rebecca Gomez just talked about one of them, which I'm going to also, which is the salary gap in pay between female and male physicians. I'm a pediatrician. I haven't done this before, so I'm going to be looking at my notes, excuse me. But so despite being a growing percentage of the physician workforce, women still get paid less. And as a pediatrician, we actually make 93% of what our male counterparts make. That is even adjusting for factors like subspecialty and numbers of years of experience. So despite having the same training, having the same titles and roles in our practices, and even the same numbers of hours worked, women continue to be paid less than their male colleagues. When it comes to overall the umbrella of medicine, actually, as of 2024 data, that pay gap was as much as 23%, which for the higher earning specialties is almost the equivalent of about $100,000 a year that women are making less than their male peers, which is outrageous in this as a whole. So I definitely need to be working on that. That's still a really big gap. Like I said, I'm guessing it's more sort of, again, male-driven fields. A lot of surgical specialties is where I'm guessing the gap is more of a difference. Women, tend to work more as generalists, not so much in the subspecialties, probably for more flexibility, as well as working part-time. Women usually bear the responsibility of more chores and childcare when it comes to household duties. So this definitely affects our career choices. Pediatricians are sort of the lowest paid, one of the lowest paid medical specialties. So for us, our consideration is a lot of sort of debt to income ratio. Obviously, we're paying back medical school loans. Most of us had to take out loans to go to medical school. So those issues definitely, affect our career choice. They're the critical factors in that. I'm not on the sort of public policy end of things for women in medicine, but I am sure that the American Medical Association and different subcommittees are working on making that difference. Hopefully we can be like the WNBA and negotiate better deals, because it doesn't happen, like I said, in every practice. I sort of crowdsource my physician moms group on Facebook about differences in pay. And I did get responses that said, oh, not at my practice, we're paid the same. So it doesn't happen everywhere, but it seems like it's happening enough that is still an issue. I also just wanted to highlight some pioneers in medicine. So the first one would be Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell, who was the first woman granted a medical degree in 1849. She was turned away from 10 medical schools before finally being accepted at Geneva Medical College of Western New York. And that was only because they asked the male students their opinion if she should be able to join. And they agreed, thinking it was a prank. But she graduated. She struggled to find work after graduation, unfortunately. So she ended up creating, in 1857, she co-founded the New York Infirmary for Women and Children to serve the poor. And then later on, she also created the Women's Medical College New York Infirmary in 1867 to support and encourage more women to go into medicine. So thank you, Dr. Elizabeth Blackwell. She does have an actual day named after her, though I'm blanking on which. I think it's early March. So sorry about that. Thank you for letting me speak to you guys this morning.
Thank you so much, doctor, and keep up the good work. We need pediatricians to get our children to move on with good health, you'd think, but then again, we're women.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'd like to now introduce Talia Espinoza. She is a student trustee for the entire Post Community College, representing the students at the district board meetings. She also chairs the Undocumented Student Caucus, which serves the entire California Community College system. She is married to a natural-born citizen, has 2 young children, and is working on her own citizenship, yet worries a lot about being deported and taken from her family. Hello, Talia.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I want to share a little bit of my story and how I got here. I grew up undocumented. My parents brought me here when I was only 9 months old. So this is the only home I know. It's been very difficult for me to see what is happening to the immigrant community in today's day, because we are seeing kids being put in cages who all they want to do is be with their moms and dads. Hardworking people are being taken away and put into cages just because of the color of their skin. I do have 2 very young boys, 4 and 8, who completely depend on me to drop them off at school, pick them up. And for me, I am constantly looking over my shoulder, something I didn't have to do in the past. If I see a certain type of truck behind me, my body immediately paralyzes, and I can feel the fear inside me because I don't know who it is, and I don't know if I'm going to make it to pick up my children. After I pick up my children, same thing, now more so because my children are in the car. I remember the stories my 4th grade teacher would tell us about the Holocaust. She was 3 years old and a Jew at the time. She remembers how they escaped under tunnels so they would not be captured by the Nazis. And it is so sad to see that we are living those times in present day. For me, waking up after the morning of the elections, it was a sad day. I dressed all in black as I grieved the future of our country, because we all knew what this meant. It was heartbreaking to find out that even some of my own family members voted against my best interests, and those of their extended family who let their hate for their own people be the major reason why they voted for a tyrant. The truth is that people have tried to stop me in the past. I've been racially profiled by a cop. I was told that I was a criminal and that I belonged in jail with the rapists and the murderers because that's what I was, a low-life criminal. He stopped me for no reason. And that day, I knew that I had a fight against me. He told me, if I see you driving on my streets again, I promise you, I will arrest you and you will be deported. Was I afraid? Yes. But I had to continue go out to work and continue my education because that was my mom's main source of income. She worked too, but as a single mom raising 3 young children, it was very difficult for her. That day I was coming back from church. So no, I was not out causing trouble. Now that I have the privilege to be a legal permanent resident of the United States, I have taken that privilege and have been more outspoken than ever about how this isn't a fight about politics. This is a fight about basic human rights. People being dehumanized because of the color of their skin. We've seen that happen before in the history of the United States, sadly. We are seeing people commit hate crimes both on the left and on the right, but more so on the right. We see how they try to distort and make us seem like we are not human, so that when they do put us in cages, it doesn't seem as bad. Something I learned in my ethnic studies, this is the same thing they did with Black people. They compared their skulls, the early sociologists, to monkeys, to use that as an excuse to treat them as less than human. So I ask that you please continue doing what you're doing. I know I am. I have a wonderful quote on my board that I love and I look at every day. The question isn't who is going to let me, it's who's going to stop me, by Ayn Rand. And that is what I will continue doing. I know how dangerous it is, but I've started a journey and I can't stop now until I've helped to make a difference for the immigrant community and all the other marginalized communities being affected by today's administration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Talia. And if you could, please keep in touch with us. So if we can support you in any way, we would want to.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Have a good Saturday, and I see your boys there. So have an enjoyable weekend and good luck. Okay, are there any candidates in the room? If so, raise your Zoom hand and we will give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and your campaign. Do we have anyone, Libby?